Joy Reid fired from NBC. MSNBC fired her. If you guys haven't heard, you probably heard, didn't hear, you don't care. We don't really care, but interesting to look at. Let's check it out. So this is the Daily Mail reporting this. Joy Reid's MSNBC show is canceled as, guess why? Ratings plummet. And it's all about the almighty dollar, as we know. And Joy Reid just couldn't keep her audience. That's weird. Why couldn't she keep her audience? Well, we'll try and figure that out. But first, let's see Joy Reid in her honest moment after being fired. She wanted to get personal and let us know how she's feeling about this horrible situation. Because remember, guys, she's the victim. And any other people getting fired right now in positions of power and influence, remember, they're the victim. Joy Reid is the victim. Okay? So let's hear her and grab a box of Kleenex. You have to have it ready. Get a tissue box ready, guys, because this is a tearjerker. Here we go.
Had value, and that that what I was doing had value. And in the end, I try not to cry on TV. And I say this is kind of like me on TV, so I apologize. And that it mattered. I see Karen is there, and she's been texting me as well. And so what I will just say is that in the end, thank you. Where I land is that the moment of guilt that I felt, that I went hard on so many issues, whether it was the Black Lives Matter issues of a young baby or a mom or a dad that was killed, or when we opened up people's eyes to the fact that Asian Americans were being targeted and not just Black folks, or went hard for immigrants who've done nothing but come to this country like my parents did.
Now, just I want to be clear, guys. This sounds all nice and fluffy and friendly and heartfelt, but you remember, her job was, all these years, her job was to punch down and get us to hate half the country. She wasn't doing the job of journalism. Just be absolutely clear. She's using the trigger things that for lefties, and I can tell you firsthand because I was a lefty my whole life. I still have, actually, we've talked about this. Leslie and I just talked about this. We've out-lefted the Democratic Party. So this isn't about our values and how we feel about things. This is about using people against each other, their emotions against each other. Her job all these years was to get us to hate each other and not challenge the people in power. Journalism's supposed to be challenging people in power. She never did that. Never, ever once did that. And we're going to get into some other horrible stuff she did in just a second, but let's hear the rest of this. I just want to remind you guys, that's what that is. That's what that is. Does she really believe it? That's a whole nother question. We can talk about that too. How real are these tears? I mean, it must be an ego hit to the ego to lose your job at any point, but does she actually feel she was championing people, holding the people accountable that are responsible for their shitty lives? No, she never did that. It's the fault of the neighbor with the Trump sign in their lawn. That's the reason why people are suffering. Okay, let's hear more.
And try to make a life and defended them. Or whether we've talked about what the president is doing that is subversive to the Constitution, that is injurious to our liberty, defending books that people find inconvenient, that Nicole Hannah-Jones put into our spirit, that we need to understand 1619 as the real founding of this country, whether it's talking about any of these issues. And yes, whether it's talking about Gaza and the fact that we as the American people have a right to object, to little babies being bombed. And where I come down on that is I'm not sorry. I am not sorry that I stood up for those things, because those things are of God. And I'm a church girl too, and those are the things that I was taught were of God. And so I'm not sorry. I'm just proud of my show.
You're not sorry. You're proud of your show. Yeah, no, you didn't do any of those things. You didn't do any of those things, Joy Reid. And I'll tell you guys a personal story. I actually did meet Joy Reid back in 2008. We were covering the Obama inauguration it was where he accepted the nomination for the Democratic party vote at the DNC in Denver. She was low end at that point, and she was working out of a little small office. And we were, I think, me and my camera crew, we were like charging our phones. She let us charge our phones in her office, and she was a real go getter, and she was really going to make a difference. And Obama was about to get elected, and we were going to really champion stuff together. At that time, if you asked me at the time, I'd say, oh yeah, this is a hardworking woman, and she is. I mean, you don't get a job like that unless you're a hard worker, a go getter, a careerist. That's what you are. You're a careerist, and there's nothing wrong with being a careerist as long as you're not hurting people. That's my take. But you can spot a careerist a mile away. There's plenty here in LA, guys. There's plenty of careerists, and that's fine. But once you cross a line of that, your influence and your power is hurting people, that's where you have a moral compass issue, which Joy Reid had no problem doing whatever MSNBC told her to do, and while she was pretending to be caring about people. I'll give you an example. I was going to pull this one up, but I'm going to remind you guys, if you guys remember COVID, if you remember the Eric Clapton incident where Eric Clapton got vax injured, and what happened was he said, we need to look at this thing. And then all of a sudden this big smear campaign on Eric Clapton was targeting anyone that, was complaining about the vaccine. Now, obviously that doesn't make any sense logically. You can't call this guy an anti-vaxxer, which they all did. All of them called him an anti-vaxxer. You can't be an anti-vaxxer if you took the vax. So, but I guess you are. You're saying I'm having reactions. I can't play guitar. Like Rolling Stone had in 2004, 20 years ago, had called Eric Clapton the #1 guitarist of all time. Fast forward to COVID of 2020, 2021. Eric Clapton is vax injured, and all of a sudden he is the worst piece of shit. And the reason I bring up Eric Clapton, because Joy Reid was a champion and spearheader of the narrative of not only Eric Clapton's an anti-vaxxer, but he's a racist. That's another smear tactic, and it's something that Joy Reid had no problem doing at the time. You want to see how else awful she was? And this one is not actually a strike at her as much as it's a strike at her, but it's more of a strike at the billionaire class that protects her because she protects them. Watch this. This is Joy Reid a few years ago having to apologize for her tweets that were homophobic. Watch how she manipulates the narrative in her apology for homophobic tweets. And remember, this isn't so much a strike at her, but the people protecting her. Then she's protecting them. That's the relationship. Watch this.
The community that I support and that I deeply care about is hurting because of some despicable and truly offensive posts being attributed to me. And many of you have seen these blog posts circulating online and in social media. Many of them are homophobic, discriminatory, and outright weird and hateful. When a friend found them in December and sent them to me, I was stunned. Frankly, I couldn't imagine where they'd come from or whose voice that was. In the months since, I've spent a lot of time trying to make sense of these posts. I hired cybersecurity experts to see if somebody had manipulated my words or my former blog. And the reality is they have not been able to prove it. But
they've not been able to prove it. I love it. And she's memorized this. This is completely complete theater. You practice this monologue, you practice in the mirror. This is Hollywood meets media meets Washington, D.C. It's all the same thing, guys. I'm telling you guys, it's the same job. It just, where do you fit the best? And she was hand selected, like we said, careerist, opportunist, hard worker. I'm telling you firsthand, she was a hard worker that day back in 2008 in Denver when I met her. I'm telling you, hard worker, go-getter. And this is a hand-selected, this is an audition that she was, a lifelong audition. She got this role. And when shit goes down, she's given the theater piece to perform, where she's going to convince us that she is totally innocent of tweets. That her story is, listen to this, she's going to tell us that somebody hacked her account and did homophobic tweets, which happens to all of us, right? We always get hacked. We do homophobic tweets. This is her case against this.
What I know. I genuinely do not believe I wrote those hateful things because they are completely alien to me.
I do not believe Oh my God. I do not believe I see. So see how if that was put in a court of law, that's not actually lying because it's a opinion. It's not. She's not saying I did not do this. That's your giveaway, guys. If the person's not saying I did not do this, that's a red flag. She's saying I don't believe I did this. So yeah, let's hear the rest of this shit. And again, this isn't a strike on her and her homophobia or whatever her problem is. That's not the story here. The story is you have a billionaire class that runs this organization, and when shit hits the fan, they protect her as long as they need to until they don't. And then they shoot her out the back. So here, let's watch the rest of this rehearsed speech. And remember, it's the people she's protecting that we should be mad at. I don't actually give a shit about homophobic tweets because people that do that to themselves. We don't need you to go to jail or be punished. You look like an idiot on your own. So that's not, I don't really care. What I care about is the organization giving her the script to read to protect her when this happened. Let's hear the rest.
But I can definitely understand, based on things I have tweeted and have written in the past, why some people don't believe me. I've not been exempt from being dumb or cruel or hurtful to the very people I want to advocate for. I own that. I get it. And for that, I am truly, truly sorry.
There it is. Joy Reid fired from MSNBC for low ratings. They protected her. She protected them until they didn't need her anymore, and they spit her out the back. And, we'll always have the paper trail of all of her horrible things, and we'll always be able to see that the entire time she was never protecting the people she claimed to care about. She was protecting the billionaire class who paid her paycheck. Sorry, Joy Reid, you're not getting that paycheck anymore.